What we saw today was rather strange. There was no more talk of a 2-week deadline. Trump actually did something. He gave an ultimatum and said, stop buying Russian oil. He told that to Europe. Okay, I'm not making this up. Here's what's happened. So 30 or so leaders are meeting Zelensky in Paris to debate Ukraine's future security guarantees. So this is in Paris, hosted by Macron. And you see folks show up like the president of Finland showing up wearing a matching black suit. Like that was kind of an interesting fashion choice for those that are interested in that sort of thing. I think this is solidarity with Zelensky. Trump's special envoy Witkoff was there for some reason I don't quite understand. Like, what is Witkoff doing there when Witkoff, like, he's supposed to be the guy that's only showing up for the Russians? And I mean, I would understand if it was Kellogg there. So it would be like having like a spy in the conference, but he only lasted for 20 minutes. And then just after 20 minutes, he took off and he would return again when the Europeans called Trump. He looked very uncomfortable. I don't know why he was there. So the coalition of the willing met, and this is Antonio Costa posting this. Ukraine security is Europe security, and today we're turning commitment into action. Well, okay. I mean, they talked about some things, and they're moving the right direction, but action might be a little bit much. Ursula von der Leyen, somebody corrected me and told me phonetically. By the way, if I screw up spelling and you like let me know in an email or something, tell me how to do it phonetically. I think I got close there. In Paris for a crucial meeting of the Coalition of the Willing on security guarantees, we have been working on 3 core tasks. First, turning Ukraine into a steel porcupine. Okay, so that way it can't be attacked without significant damage to the attacker. Okay. Building a multinational force for Ukraine backed by the U.S. Of course, the Russians don't want a multinational force of mostly NATO-type countries in Ukraine after this is over, because that defeats the purpose of making Ukraine even weaker. If you have all those people in Ukraine closer to the Russian border, that's bad to them, and they're going to balk at that. And reinforcing Europe's defense posture, and they really need to get on the stick with that. They went a couple decades blissfully unaware that they had to do anything about this. Okay, UK is ready to send troops. Italy says no. Germany is undecided. Europe's split deepens ahead of Macron's September 4th summit on post-war Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. So that's where they were before they got there. And then after they were doing this, Spiegel reports that Germany is ready to boost Ukraine's security guarantees with major investments in air defense, long-range strike capabilities, that's all good, including missile production, good, arming 4 mechanized brigades with around 480 APCs and IFVs yearly, all good. Berlin avoids pledging actual troops. And so, okay, they don't have to necessarily, like, you don't have to pledge troops in order to be helpful, but okay, we're seeing what different countries are willing or not willing to do. Now, we saw this. This is Zelensky saying today's Coalition of the Willing meeting was attended by leaders in person and online, over 30 countries, all united by the same goal, to end this war with a reliable peace and long-term security. We discussed in detail each country's readiness to make a contribution to ensuring security on land, at sea, in the air, and in cyberspace. We coordinated positions. We reviewed elements of security guarantees. We share the same view that Russia is making every effort to drag out the negotiation process and prolong the war. It seems pretty clear that that's what they're doing. Pressure on Russia must be intensified, and we'll talk about the pressure that is coming, kind of, almost. 19th EU sanctions packages are underway. Japan is also working on sanctions measures. I would like to give special thanks to President Trump for all his efforts to end this war and for America's readiness to provide support to Ukraine on its part. Okay, so that's diplomatic and nice that he enfolded the U.S. in that, but okay. During the Coalition of the Willing summit, EU leaders held a call with India's Prime Minister Modi, Ursula von der Leyen, von der Leyen shared a photo of the how am I doing, by the way, if you are from a country that says it correctly? Ursula von der Leyen shared a photo of the conversation, stressing India's role in engaging with Zelensky and pushing for an end to Russia's war. India is one of the biggest buyers of Russian oil, and so maybe they can make some progress by talking to Modi. Maybe they can't, but at least they're trying. And Modi is perhaps on the fence still, although he seems to be leaning more toward China and Russia, which is weird when India and China have been at each other for decades. Okay. Today, we spoke with President Trump. I thank him for his support. It was a long and detailed conversation about how to push the situation toward real peace. We discussed various options, says Zelensky, the most important applying the right pressure, strong measures, particularly economic ones, to force an end to the war. The key to peace is depriving Russia's war machine of money and resources. Now, I think he's right about this. The key to peace is depriving Russia's war machine of money and resources. So what actually came out of that? Well, Trump demanded that Europe completely stop buying Russian oil. Okay, I mean, that's reasonable. It's not a lot. It's not enough. I mean, like, aren't you going to do like some of those sanctions that you were promising, or are you just not sufficiently upset with the Russians yet to actually do that? According to the White House, the EU paid Moscow $1.1 billion just last year. Trump also called on allies to increase pressure on China for supporting the Kremlin. Okay, I mean, I guess that's fair. Yeah, baby steps maybe, but it's not all that impressive. Again, Zelensky, long and very detailed conversation with President Trump. First and foremost, we talked about how to push the situation toward these measures, the very strong measures, and they talked about constant maximum protection for Ukrainian skies. Ukraine must not be at the mercy of constant Russian attacks. Okay, but I mean, that's kind of all they really got. President Trump's unhappy that Europe is purchasing Russian oil. Okay. But okay, so one step at a time. Let's get the EU to stop with that. In particular, Slovakia and Hungary, which complained to President Trump after Ukraine strikes on Russian energy infrastructure and the shutdown of Druzhba oil pipeline, were mentioned. Well, that's a really interesting nuance, and maybe that's a silver lining that Trump's not backing Orban on or ban on that. Somebody else corrected me on Orban. I'm glad that today the United States of America, naming these countries, is openly saying that they are helping Russia's war machine, and we all need to stop this. Okay, so it's something, but it's not. I mean, it's hardly exciting. Okay, Jay and Kiev posted this. Trump is right about Hungary and Slovakia needing to stop buying Russian oil. But this is just Trump deflecting, avoiding, having to sanction Russia, buying Putin more time. I understand. I mean, if you see it that way, I think that's a fair read. It is providing Putin more time because nothing's really getting done. I mean, he did move forward, but it didn't move forward enough where he actually moved Putin from doing something. This simple tactic just bought Putin weeks more killing and time to launch large offense in Donetsk. And that offense, it looks like it's coming. The offensive in Donetsk, I mean, they're repositioning 100,000 troops in order to put pressure on Pokrovsk. Okay. UK Starmer announces the coalition of the willing partners will supply Ukraine with long-range missiles capable of striking deep into Russia. Well, that's good. How many of them? That's to be decided, but they've waited like way too long to do this sort of thing by being persuaded by the Russians that if you do that, then you're at war with us, that sort of thing. And by the way, you can't be in NATO and you can't have these peacekeepers and so on and so forth. The shift comes as partners acknowledge Putin cannot be trusted and the pressure must increase in order to end the war. NATO chief Rutte gets it. Why are we interested in what Russia thinks about troops in Ukraine? It's a sovereign country. It's not for Russia to decide. Yeah, okay, so ignore that and drive on. Then this commentary, Russia didn't ask anyone's permission before inviting North Korean troops, so why should the Kremlin get a veto on who Ukraine invites into its country to help defend it? Great question. Gary Kasparov answered that, or added to that, by saying NATO was founded to defend against Russian invasion and not by making Russia happy. That's right. Its whole purpose, the whole reason NATO exists is to prevent stuff like what just happened in 2022. Okay, the U.S. is winding down part of its military aid programs for European countries bordering Russia. If this sounds like, oh, they're giving with this hand and taking with that, look, oh, this is terrible what they're doing, it's not related, I don't think. I think this is actually something different in kind. And what I mean by that is that what the Americans are doing here is actually shifting to the Pacific, and that's part of a military doctrinal strategy for the United States. Pentagon informed allies that it would no longer fund the training and equipping of the armies of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. This refers to a program that spent $1.6 billion to the region between 2018 and 2022. The decision is linked to the policy of the Pentagon advisor Elbridge Colby, who is pushing to reallocate resources toward the Indo-Pacific region and containing China. I think that last paragraph is actually very fair. I think that's what's behind it. Don't know for sure, but I think that that's what it is. Okay, meanwhile, Ukraine is moving to deepen defense ties with the Philippines. Ukrainian defense officials are set to visit Manila for talks on drones, training, and capability development. It's really, really wild to watch what's going on. The last couple of days was a Shanghai Cooperation Summit, and these are the countries involved in it: Russia and China, Mongolia in between, and India was there, and Turkey, and another number of other countries. And then you see these other countries that are like American allies that, like, okay, so if you are Japan, or you're South Korea, you're the Philippines, you're bracing against whatever this is that's coming potentially. Now, not all the stands are involved or really care or interested. They just want to get along with their neighborhood. But it is really wild to watch what's happening in, like, if you're Japan, like, how are you seeing what's going on? It's probably not good. Or Australia, like, these countries are all part of, like, NATO Pacific. I mean, that's kind of how they're aligned. Okay, last couple things. Zelensky responds to Putin's invitation to come to Moscow. If you want the meeting not to happen, invite me to Moscow. The fact that Russia has started talking about a meeting, well, that's good. But going to Moscow, really? And then Marko Mikkelsen, I quote him periodically, he's chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Estonian Parliament, said this: if Putin invites Zelensky to Moscow, then Zelensky should invite Putin to The Hague. Okay, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. Tell me what you thought about what you saw here. Put that in the comments below. I try to read as much as I can. That would include correcting my pronunciation. By the way, Jim F. from Lawrence, Kansas. I got it. You'll see it on Saturday. Thank you very much. And just a shout out to you. All right. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.